guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I will be doing a review of The Last Dragon Chronicle by Chris Lacey. It is a 7-book middle grade series, and I'm going to give you just some general thoughts on it. I'm hoping this video won't be too long, yeah, I'll dive straight into it. So the first book is The Fire Within. The second book is Ice Fire. The third book is Fire Star. The fourth book is The Fire Eternal. The fifth book is Dark Fire. The sixth book is Fire World, and the seventh book is The Fire Ascending. These books are technically middle grade, but as you will see the further I get into the review, it's a little bit more complicated than that. So I will start by telling you the general premise of the first book. I will be keeping this review spoiler free, but I will touch upon some themes that are in it. So if you want to completely know absolutely nothing about the series aside from the synopsis on the back, then obviously don't check out a review. But I'll just be giving you my general thoughts on the series, and most importantly its progression, because I believe that that's quite an important conversation to have in terms of this series and middle grade in general. The first book, which is The Fire Within, is about a boy named David Rain who goes and moves in as a lodger with a mother and daughter named Elizabeth and Lucy Pennycettle, respectively. These two girls have lived by themselves, and they now have David as a lodger to help with the income. And Elizabeth Pennykettle's job is that she makes clay dragons and sells them at her local market. And it kind of goes from there. David is a student. I can't actually remember what he's studying. It's amazing how quickly that becomes irrelevant. But yeah, he is studying some kind of science, but I can't remember which one. And he obviously needs somewhere to stay while he's at uni. And so hence why he becomes the lodger. Now, David really likes these dragons. They feel very, very realistic. They're very, very detailed, and Elizabeth gives him one as a new home welcoming. What's it called? Housewarming gift when he moves in. And these dragons look eerily realistic, especially because he keeps hearing a load of whirring noises around the house, and he's not allowed to enter the dragon den, which is where Elizabeth makes her dragons. Except the one time that he peeks in and realizes that she doesn't have a kiln, which is the kind of oven that potters use to set clay. Okay, now into my thoughts. That's the general gist of the story. I'll just get straight into my thoughts because I don't want this video to be a long one. I enjoyed this first book. I thought it was very cute. There was a searingly glaring lack of dragon content for the first book in the Last Dragon Chronicle, but I did really like the character interactions, and this one actually bases itself more around a squirrel. So the little girl, Lucy, is worried about the well-being of a squirrel after the kind of woodland area behind their home recently had a couple of trees cut down, and that meant that the house, the home of these squirrels disappeared. So the squirrels all dispersed apart from one squirrel who was blind in one eye, so he couldn't escape, really. He didn't know where to go, and she's worried about this squirrel's well-being. And that's kind of the central focus of it, and she gets David to try and help her. David starts writing a story about the squirrel for her. It's all very cute. The interactions between the characters is adorable. Lack of dragons aside, it's a very cute book. I rated it 3 stars. I enjoyed it. It wasn't a wow, this is amazing, but I did enjoy it. The second book has a little bit more oomph to it, and is still about their concern for squirrels and just general woodland animals, as well as actually featuring a little bit more dragon content. But I did enjoy this one more because it still had the wholesomeness, but it had a little bit more dragon content and was a bit more kick-ass, and I really appreciated that. So this time in this book, the dragon content becomes bigger, but so does the scope of the story, because they actually travel to the Arctic for his school. But obviously it all ties back to dragons. We also get polar bears featured in a couple of these as well, but they're like sentient and they can communicate, etc. And I really enjoyed this one. This was probably my favourite in the series. I gave this one 4 stars, as I did the second one. The fourth book is where the story started to go downhill for me. So at the beginning of the fourth book, I had no problem with it. It seemed unusual, the turn it took, but I was still intrigued by it. The second half of this, it did something that I absolutely despised. The other problem that this book has is that it undoes pretty much everything you know about the previous 3 books. And I hate it when series do that. When it leads you up to something only for you to be like, oh, that didn't mean anything then. I hated that. It got only worse though by the time this one came in, because the personalities of the characters no longer befitted the story. So the characters that you know and love have suddenly been squished into a box that they don't fit in, and are now changing their personalities to suit the narrative instead of the narrative changing to suit the characters. I'm a very character driven reader, so having the characters just shoehorned into a plot did not work for me at all, and that was my main critique of the rest of the series. By this point, the series... No, not this one. By this point, the series has completely outgrown itself and the characters, as well as its audience, because it tries to overcomplicate things. Also, I have never known that a use of a hyphen could be this annoying. Colon, not hyphen. A colon. Oh my gosh, I hate colons after the end of this book. But... this one, it starts with like interdimensional travel, parallel universes, etc. So it has gone from being a very wholesome story about women who make dragons to this, whatever this was. By the end of this book, I was blackout reading. Because I read these to my children, I was just reading the words out loud and then I had no idea what I actually read. That persisted throughout the entirety of this book, which I ended up actually not really reading. I have no idea what this book is about because I was just reading it out loud to my children without actually processing any of the information because I didn't care anymore. Needless to say that this series is definitely not one that I enjoyed. It has a lot of problems in terms of its continuity, especially when it comes to bearing in mind who its audience is. A lot of the trouble with middle grade is that it tries to do the Harry Potter effect where it grows with its audience, but a lot of them have trouble doing so and still maintaining the characters that we know and love, especially when you are changing adult characters. If you are changing a 12-year-old into a 17-year-old slowly but surely and progressively, that works. If you are changing a 12-year-old into a 13-year-old, but those two children are absolutely nothing alike, it doesn't work. So I had a lot of trouble both with the character work, but also with its readability. I don't know who to recommend this to. The first book would be definitely too boring for someone in the higher end of middle grade, like a 12-year-old. But the last book would be probably too convoluted for a 9-year-old. Also, there is so much information to process from the 4th book onwards that you kind of need to binge read them. The trouble with that being that a 9-year-old can't binge read them because they won't last like the last few books. A 12-year-old can't binge read them because they won't like the first few books. And also, the problem with binge reading it is that it shows you all of the plot holes and issues and character flaws that make the series not actually work. Overall, this is a series that I definitely would not recommend, and I don't normally bother doing Rant reviews, aside from the one time that I did that Holly Black one. But this is definitely not a series that I would find easy to recommend to anyone. It's overly convoluted and it definitely feels like an adult talking down to children and simultaneously expecting said children to be able to master more complex analogies than they're capable of. If you start out a story being a very cute and wholesome story and then try and make it progress into a massive epic fantasy, you do need some groundwork in between. I'm sure that many people will disagree with me. The reviews from what I have seen on Goodreads are incredibly split. There are people that are giving it 5 stars and thinking that it's amazing, and then there are other people that think that exactly the same as I do, the story got way too ahead of itself and started tripping over its own shoes. I haven't got much else to say about this series. It's definitely not one that I will be recommending. I will keep a hold of it for my kids as kind of a social experiment. I'm very interested to see further down the line, when my kids are old enough to read it to themselves, if this is a series that they actually do enjoy and I am completely wrong about. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see with that one. But yes, for now, not one that I would really recommend, which is a shame because I did really want to enjoy it because I love reading about dragons. But c'est la vie. Okay, well, if you liked this review, although I don't know why you would, or if you have learned to not pick up the Last Dragon Chronicle from this review, then do give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to, and hit the bell icon if you want to get notified every time I post a new video. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, and reviews on random Sundays across the month if I have a series review or a very specific book that I want to talk about. And as ever, in the description box, I will leave links to my Twitter, Instagram and Goodreads, as well as my blog, where I also post series reviews, but in a much more analytical sense and much more dissected. So if you're interested in any of those, then also go check those out. But that is all from me for today, guys. Bye!